Welcome, Chosen One.
Hey guys, welcome to the Ace of Plays channel and to the Nilfgaard starter deck review video. This is just one of the many videos in my new starter deck review series. In the last one we took a look at the Skellige starter deck. Very happy with that. All the starter decks have been completely revamped, reworked, and they're all pretty good. They look really cool. They promote a lot more synergy, really show what the faction is up to. And in this video, we'll be taking a look at Nilfgaard. So in the last video, I forgot to start with the leader. I'm going to do this now. Emir of our Emirates. Move an allied Nilfgaardian unit back to your hand and boost it by 2, and then play a card. So, you take a unit. It can't be a neutral unit like Geralt of Rivia, but it can be a Nilfgaardian unit like Swears. Put it back in your hand. And you boost it by 2, so you get a few extra points on there. And then you play a card. It can be the same card, just to replay its ability. Or it could be a new card, and you can save the card you took up for the next round. This is a really cool ability. I don't really know. Like, Emir is not seeing a lot of play competitively, so I don't really know what the optimal way to use him is. Like, I don't know if people have found like a super good way to use his ability. One thing, of course, is to remember that if you pick up an allied unit that is damaged, it will heal and then boost by 2. So you can like heal a unit, boost it by 2, and then replay its deploy ability. Will it also unlock? I'm not sure. It may unlock the unit as well, which is also very good. Let us move on to the deck, shall we? So Geralt of Rivia, I mentioned this in the Skellige starter deck video. It's like the legendary, the neutral legendary that all the decks get. It's a really good card. It really punishes your opponent for having a big unit. A lot of new players, when they go first and have the tactical advantage, they often just use it right away. And that boosts the unit by 5. So usually, Geralt of Rivia can find a target from turn 1. But often it is of course smart to save him, because a lot of matchups, once you get familiar with the game and the matchups, you'll start to know that, oh, I'm playing against this monster deck. They usually have this big guy that's like 12 strength. Save Geralt for that if you can. Really good card. Swears. Seize an enemy unit with 3 or less power. This is good. It's 9 points right away, which is really strong. It's definitely worth 10 provisions. Of course, the real kicker is that you can steal units that have ongoing abilities, or abilities that haven't been triggered yet. So you deny your opponent that ability, and you gain that ability. So often this guy will be worth a lot more than 9 points. 9 points ain't shit for Swears. You steal an engine, you steal like an order ability that's gonna win you the game. Really good. Really good. Next up, Seret. Damage an enemy unit by 3. If Ox is in your hand, damage the unit by 5 instead. Ox is this guy. Lock an enemy unit. If Seret is in your hand, lock all copies of that unit on the opponent's side. Both of these cards are good. Ox, when played without Seret in hand, is still a very good card. Seret played without Ox in hand is good, but you usually want to play Seret first. Just point-wise. Of course, Ox, if your opponent has multiple copies on the board of the same unit and you want to lock all of them, Ox can get a lot of value. But it's not often that will happen, so usually you'll play Seret first. Keep in mind, though, that there's actually a third man, a third boy, in this combo, Leth of Gullet. If Ox is in your hand, lock an enemy unit. If Seret is in your hand, damage an enemy unit by 3. If both are in your hand, lock a unit and damage it by 3. So if you get this guy, like this guy's good. So if you get him or you craft him, he works really well in this deck because you already have Severin and Ox. But yeah, these boys are good. Treason. Choose an enemy unit, then damage adjacent enemy units by its power. Obviously, like this card, it can get sick value if your opponent, sets up their board in a way where you can just, make a really big boy commit treason. Often, though, you'll find it kind of lacking. It only costs 7 provisions, so it can get like decent, mediocre value for its cost, but it's not a super good card. Just keep that in mind. Excuse me. Slave Infantry, on the other hand, is a really good card. Sees a lot of play in even the most optimized competitive decks. Transform an ally unit into Slave Infantry. Well, my nose always gets itchy when I make these types of videos for some reason. If you use this on, if you have an allied unit with 1 power and you use this, it transforms into a 5 power unit, making this a 9-point play. This will also, if you're playing against Skellige and they're trying to trigger Bloodthirst and they're damaging your units, you can use this to transform them into undamaged Slave Infantries and deny them Bloodthirst. Which is a really solid card. It's not super spectacular, but it's just really good. Hauser's Thunder. It's a decent control card. I'm a fan of this card, but it's not. Again, it's not spectacular, but it's completely solid. Damaging unit by 5, you can kill most important cards with this, no problem. Often you'll trade up in provisions. You'll definitely trade up in value a lot of the time if you kill an engine. It's very good, but an optimized list would not run this. Keep that in mind. Elder Bear, like I said in my Skellige video, this is probably the first card to go. It's not good. It does nothing. 5 points for 6 provisions. Not very good. So it's probably the first card to go once you get some new cards that you can put in your deck. Impera Brigade. Summon all copies of this unit from your deck to this row. Very simple. It thins your deck, which is a very powerful ability. All the factions have a bronze card that has a similar effect to this, where you summon the other copy. It's always good, as long as you can trigger it. Some have harder to trigger abilities. This guy just has to be placed on the melee row, so this is actually a really good card. It thins your deck for 1, very cheap thinning, very good. This guy, even fully optimized, if this deck is fully optimized, this guy could still be in here. These guys. You need both. Nilfgaard Knight. This is a really interesting card. Boost an enemy unit by 2. Now you might think, what? That sucks. Well, no. First of all, if you play this when your opponent doesn't have a unit, you don't have to boost anything. So it's a 6 for 5. Really good. You can also use it to set up treason. If your opponent has 3 units and you boost the one in the middle by 2, then he'll deal an extra potential 4 damage, 2 and 2, when you use treason. So Nilfgaard Knight is actually, and it's a solid card on its own, but as long as you have treason in your deck, you really should have this in your deck. It also helps set up Geralt of Rivia if your opponent has nothing higher than, let's say 7, or let's say 6. If they have a 6 strength unit as their biggest unit, you can boost it up to 8, and then your Geralt of Rivia isn't a dead card. So just keep that in mind. It's a cool interaction. This is a good card. Moving on. Alba Pikeman. A very solid engine. Every allied turn on turn end, damage a random enemy unit on the melee row by 1. And this also goes on the melee row. This is a good engine. It generates value over time the longer it stays on the board. If your opponent has a unit on the melee row when you play this down, it'll get a ping right away, and it's a 5 for 5 engine. And it's 4 power, which means it requires not necessarily the highest level removal, but definitely it demands removal. Like a 3 strength engine can just be pinged to death, often by like Skellige. A 4 strength engine usually requires some form of removal in addition, so this is a good card, and you can keep it in a deck for as long as you want. It will always be good. The same kind of goes for this. Alba Armor Cavalry, which locks an enemy unit. Nilfgaard is all about that locking. So lock, should have mentioned this with Ox, but lock, you know, shuts off all the abilities of a card. Specifically the abilities that are stated on the actual card. For example, if we look at Alva Pikeman, has an ongoing ability that is printed on the card. If you lock this, it won't work. The distinction here is, for example, if we look at a card like Adrenaline Rush, which adds the resilience status to a unit, that won't disappear if the unit gets locked, because it's a status and it's not an ability printed on the actual card. That's usually the normal distinction, so just keep that in mind. But this is really good for shutting down a bunch of important cards. If you're not able to kill them, locking them is very valuable. Emissary. It's a spying unit, so you play it on your opponent's side. It's 1 strength, so you give your opponent 1 point, but you boost an ally unit by 6. This has a few merits to it. Not so many in this particular deck, but you can use it if one of your engines starts getting pinged down. You can boost it up, but of course, if you boost it too high, a card like Geralt can access it more easily. So it's like a 5 for 5. In this deck, it doesn't do that much, but in other decks, this can actually do a lot more than just that simple boost. But we'll get to that at some other point. Nausicaa Sergeant. Nilfgaard staple. It's an engine. Whenever you play a unit with deploy, boost self by 1. That includes Emissary, which has a deploy ability, and even though you play it on your opponent's side, you're still playing it. So all these cards with deploy, 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 deploy. Whenever you play one of those, this will boost itself by 1. This can reach, if it doesn't get killed, it's going to easily reach like 7-8 points, which is really good for that cost. So it's just a good card. And it's another engine that you can heal up with Emissary if it starts getting pinged down, but it starts at 3, so it's easier to kill. Alba Spearman. Damage an enemy unit by 2, increase the damage by 1 for each adjacent soldier. So this can damage an enemy by 4, which would be really good, but it has reach 1, which means that it can only hit the melee row, and you have to place it on the melee row to do so. Otherwise, it doesn't hit shit. The reach 1 makes this card kind of bad. It's definitely playable. Like, most people eventually play something on the melee row, but there are definitely other 4 provision cards that are better. Of course, like I said in the Skellige video, these decks have a lot of provisions to go on. Like, this deck can still fit in 16 provisions. So take out Elder Bear, you could take out Spearman, put in some more expensive cards for more power. But eventually, once you hit the provision cap and you start optimizing your deck, you will end up having at least like 2 or 4 provision cards to be able to fit in the more expensive top end. But this probably shouldn't be in your optimized bottom end, but to each their own. So yeah, that was the Nilfgaard starter deck. I personally like the Skellige one more. I haven't really looked that much into the others, but it was definitely good. It's definitely an improvement, huge improvement. A lot of good cards, a lot of staples that are actually like competitive cards. Actually, a lot of them. These decks are really good. So if you're into Nilfgaard and you're into this particular playstyle, definitely take a look at this deck. And if you want to, okay, let's try to do this quick. If you want to see me actually try some gameplay with these decks, let me know down below. Also, let me know down below if you want me to make a video talking about potential upgrades you can make to the deck. And if you don't want to wait for me to make a video, then you can join the Ace of Play Discord, invite link in the description, and you can ask me or the others for some help upgrading your decks, people there are usually very helpful. It's a pretty nice community. Or you can just, you know, send me a DM, and we can go over your personal collection, the resources that you have, and use that to upgrade your decks. So it's not just a vague video saying, these are the good cards, put them in, craft them, get them. But instead I'll be like, oh, you have this card, well, this is definitely better than this card, so for now we swap that in, but later you should look to get this card. A more personalized approach to that. I've done this with a couple of people and they seem to have gotten great benefits from it. So yeah, definitely consider doing that. Thank you again. Did I thank you? Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you again very soon. Have a good one, guys.